It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Subhash Chandra, Professor NIT Jalandhar. Dr. Subhash Chandra received his PhD from IIT Delhi in 2007, ME with specialization on rotodynamics machines at Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh in 1997, and BE in Mechanical Engineering at Guru Nanak Dev Engineering College, Ludhiana in 1991. Dr. Subhash Chandra has 27 years of teaching experience. His area of specialization is fluid dynamics, heat transfer, combustion, industrial heating, computational fluid dynamics, and renewable energy. He published 70 research articles in journals and conference proceedings. He guided 8 PhD students and 3 are in progress. His administrative experience includes Associate Dean, Students Welfare, Faculty Coordinator, Cultural Affairs, Associate Dean, Student Welfare, Head of the Mechanical Engineering Department, Hostel's Chief Warden, Hostel Warden, Professor in charge, Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Cell. Now I invite Dr. Subhash Chandra to deliver the lecture.
Some contents related to heat transfer in solar air heaters. So the title of my presentation is Heat Transfer Enhancement Techniques with a case study of artificial rib-roughened solar air heater. So we might have discussed till now many devices related to thermal energy storage or thermal energy harnessing, like in case of solar air heaters. So the idea in case of your solar energy, like we directly tap the solar energy and utilize it for some useful purpose. So there the performance of the device that plays a very vital role. So I am going to discuss with you in my presentation that what are the different techniques which we can employ for enhancing the performance of any solar device or solar air heating device, or in general any device which is basically transferring the heat from one zone to another zone. The outline of presentation is I will discuss with you first the preliminary discussion on heat transfer enhancement techniques, and in the second part of the presentation I will be discussing a case study of artificially rib-roughened solar heater. So this is the PhD work of one of my students, so who did analysis of solar air heater surface by putting artificial ribs over that, and he could able to monitor how much enhancement in heat transfer he could able to get, and we could able to notice that there was appreciable increase in heat transfer enhancement. So in case we provide artificial rib on the solar air heater, or we can say absorber plate of the solar air heater. So coming to the fun, because as I said that my presentation will be, first section will be a general discussion on heat transfer enhancement. So first I will give you, pardon, so is it audible now?
Audible, sir. It's audible.
Okay, fine. So starting with the introduction, the subject of enhanced heat transfer has developed to the stage that it is of serious interest for heat exchanger applications. I'm using the word heat exchanger. So heat exchanger is a bigger challenge in case of heat exchangers. The process industry is aggressively working to incorporate enhanced heat transfer surfaces in its heat exchangers. So you may talk about any process industry like pharmaceutical industry, food industry, or milk processing industry, refineries. So all process industries, so they are using at many. Transfer is a major challenge or major work or major objective associated with those type of heat exchangers. So virtually every heat exchanger is a potential candidate for enhanced heat transfer. When we talk about any heat exchangers, there's always a scope that we can enhance the heat transfer performance of that heat exchanger. by providing some alterations in the flow or providing some additives in the fluid. So there are many means people have evolved for enhancing the heat transfer in heat exchangers. So it means this is the topic which is of great importance for all applications which are involving heat exchangers. So as I'm again repeating, heat exchangers, we should not think of heat exchanger that is a simply shell and tube heat exchanger. So heat exchanger generally is used as a very generic terminology. However, each potential application must be tested to see if enhanced heat transfer makes sense. So this is again very important. So we can think of any alteration in the heat exchanger or in the flow of heat exchanger or in the design of heat exchanger, so that when we finalize it, when we see that whether it is going to give us the benefit, so we need to test it. That's the only way out. So we have to do some testing, or we can construct certain facility where we can deploy such type of changes, and we can ultimately conclude something that those changes are ultimately going to give us some benefit. So it means the applications wherever we are trying to enhance the heat transfer or thinking of or proposing something that heat transfer can be enhanced, so that those are need to be tested. Heat exchangers were initially deployed to use plane surfaces, plane or smooth heat exchanger, heat transfer surfaces. So when we design a heat exchanger, we generally design it for a plane surface, right? And enhanced heat transfer surface has special surface symmetry that provides higher value of HA per unit base surface area than the plane surface. So basically, heat exchangers, because they most often work in low temperature range, and the predominant mode of heat transfer is convective heat transfer, right? So there can be radiation falling on the surface from certain hot region, but whenever talking about the heat transfer to the fluid or between two fluids, so it more often happens, and convection is the dominant mode or predominant mode of heat transfer. So it means if we have to enhance the heat transfer, so we have to work upon H and product, because we all know that the heat transfer by convection. So this is a generic, we can say, definition that so HA into temperature difference is the convective heat transfer. So basically, in case of enhanced heat transfer surface, we are working on how to enhance the value of HA, right? The thermal resistance may be reduced, or heat transfer can be increased by increasing the heat transfer coefficient either, or by increasing the surface area, or both. So this is what ultimately we are doing whenever we are talking about enhancement by any means. So we are either trying to enhance the value of H, or we are trying to enhance the value of area, or we are trying to enhance both H and A, right? So how much enhancement is there, how much enhancement we could able to yield, so that we can look into by one factor we call enhancement ratio. So enhancement ratio is the ratio of the enhanced surface product HA to the ratio HA of the smooth surface. So am I audible, sir?
Yes, audible.
Okay. So this is what is, I'm just trying to develop the things from fundamentals, that most of the applications involving the heat transfer in the heat exchangers are at low temperature, and H is the main deciding factor whether we are going to get some benefit out of certain alterations we are deploying in the heat exchanger. So enhancement ratio is to be seen that whether it is going some favorable value or not. So if enhancement ratio is greater, right? So if EH value is greater than 1, right? So we can say we are going to get benefit out of deploying some changes in the either design of the heat exchanger or some changes in the flow, right? So in the fundamental section, I would like to discuss something which is very well discussed in the domain of heat exchangers, that people use different types of techniques to enhance the heat transfer, because heat transfer enhancement is a bigger topic or well discussed topic, or it's a major objective linked with heat exchangers or heat exchanging devices, right? So they are broadly categorized as passive and active. So passive techniques employ special surface geometries or fluid additives for enhancement. So we'll discuss some more about what are different special surface geometries and what are different fluid additives we can go for enhancement. And these are passive. Passive techniques means they are first set, they don't require regular feeding for enhancing the heat transfer in a particular device. So there's another contemporary, we can say, technique, we call it as active technique, right? So they require external power such as electric or acoustic fields or surface vibrations. So it means regular input is required for enhancing the heat transfer, right? So under passive techniques, if we see that we use different types of methods for enhancing the heat transfer. If you talk about a particular, again, they depend upon the application that we are going to deal with. So if you talk about enhancing the condensation process, in case of condensers, so we use coated surfaces. So this is one of the passive techniques, right? So we're not allowing the droplets to stay over the surface. So we use some non-wetting coatings, Teflon coating, wax coatings on the surface of the condenser tubings, so that more dropwise condensation can be prevailed over there, right? So we can use some hydrophilic coating so that the condensate, whatever is sticking to the surface, that should not be retained over there. That should slip down so that the bare surface should again expose to the saturated vapors, and condensation can be made faster. So we do, as I said, we go for different coatings. So this is one of the passive techniques. Rough surfaces, again, it's a well discussed topic, and a lot of research has been carried out in this direction. So my case study even is related to the enhancing the heat transfer in case of solar air heater using roughened surfaces. This is what I said in my title, right? Rough surfaces may be either integral to the base surface or made by placing roughness elements adjacent to the surface. For single phase flow, the configuration is generally chosen to promote mixing in the boundary layer near the surface rather than to increase the heat transfer surface. So roughness elements that we generally provide very near to the surface, they are basically trying to trip the laminar sublayer, because laminar sublayer, when we talk about heat transfer from the surface to the fluid, or fluid to the surface, so the laminar sublayer, it offers a lot of resistance to the heat flow from one way to another, one direction to the another direction. So it means that there we need to create some more disturbance, more turbulence, right? We need to go for more mixing over there, right? So when I'm saying turbulence, it means we are enhancing mixing. Turbulence basically is meant for enhancing the mixing in the flow, right? So we can able to promote faster or transfer faster the energy from the surface to the fluid, or fluid to the surface, by just tripping the boundary layer, which is very close to the surface. So this is what is the philosophy behind using roughened surfaces. So we make use of this concept, and we develop certain roughened surfaces, and we could able to see a lot of enhancement in heat transfer. So there are another way of enhancing the heat transfer, like using the extended surfaces. So extended surfaces are routinely employed in many heat exchangers. Microfin tubes consist of closely spaced triangular shaped fins, approximately 25 micron high, very, very small, 25 micron, you can just imagine. So it is very, very small height fins, very important for enhancement of condensation and vaporization, right? So in condensation and vaporization, we very often use these type of, you can say, roughness elements or heat transfer enhancement elements, right? So we use microchannels. So in electronic component cooling, we use microchannels of the size 50 to 200 hydraulic diameter, micron 100 hydraulic diameter. So we can lay down on the chip surface different channels. So they can be used as extended surfaces, and they can provide enhancement in the heat transfer. So we can use another type of devices like displaced insert devices. So these are also used in many internal flow applications. So displaced insert devices are the devices inserted into the flow channel to improve the energy transport at the heated surface indirectly. So they are used with single and two-phase flows, right? So because later we'll see that two-phase flow will have some different type of issues associated with as compared to single-phase flows, right? So the displacement insert, basically they play with the core region of the flow. They increase the transport of energy in the core region and ultimately enhance the heat transfer from the surface to the fluid. We use many other devices like swirl flow devices, include a number of geometrically arrangements or tube inserts for post flow, and they are creating basically the secondary flows or rotating flows within the flow, right? So they are just giving additional disturbances in the flow. So such devices include full-length twisted tape inserts or inlet vortex generators and axial core inserts with screw type bindings. So these are some type of swirl type. So swirl means giving flow a rotation, right? So swirl, when we are able to give some rotation to the flow, right? So basically we are enhancing the mixing, and the transport of energy from the surface to the fluid will get enhanced. So in many applications for compact type heat exchangers, we used coil tubes, right? So coil tubes, we create secondary flows due to centrifugal action, right? So coil tubes may be provided more compact heat exchangers. Secondary flows in the coil tubes produce high single phase coefficients and improvement in the most boiling regimes. However, a quite small coil diameter is required to obtain moderate enhancement. So it means the coil tubes are again one type of alteration in the geometry that can ultimately lead to some enhancement in heat transfer. So these are some of the we can say elements or the components or inserts that we can make use of in many applications. So at the top there is twisted tape. So twisted tape, basically it will generate a swirl to the flow, rotation to the flow, right? So that ultimately result in better mixing. So we can have helical vane insert, we can have static mixers, right? So on the right hand side, if you see that these are displaced devices, like they're creating turbulence in the flow, right? So we can have space disc devices, tape streamline shape insert devices. So likewise, so your coil springs are there, wire coil springs are there. So we can provide roughness elements in the tubes also, right? So I'm going to discuss with you that roughened solar heater flat surface, but they are provided in the tubes to create some tripping of the bond layer very close to the surface, which can ultimately enhance the heat transfer. So as I said that you can think of many configurations, many alterations, right? But every alteration required to be tested before finalizing that whether it is going to give me a better enhancement, heat transfer enhancement ratio, right? So twisted tapes, I'm giving you one example. So twisted tapes is one type of flow, we can say inserts in the flow or the obstructions in the flow which are used for enhancing the heat transfer. So even in twisted tapes, people have used many alterations like we have twisted tape in general, because in twisted tape, number of twists per unit length, it will decide how much disturbance we are going to create in the flow. And we have different type of twists, like smaller twists and bigger twists in the same strip, right? And we can provide some dimples. So this is we can say many researchers, they innovate and they could able to develop some better heat transfer in case of providing some roughness devices, right? So dimple twister tapes, people tried a twisted tape with wire nails, so spikes are there, which can create some additional disturbances in the flow, because you know that ultimately we are trying to increase the transport mechanism of in the flow, so that we can, because every modification, we can go for numerous modifications in the flow, which are ultimately going to give me a better heat transfer, enhanced heat transfer. So whatever I'm proposing or whatever I'm thinking, right? So that is required to be tested. That is more important, right? So we can have twisted tapes with the alternative axis. So these are another type of. So that's what we could able to see, that even in twisted tapes there are many alterations. So it means you think of one geometry, you have to go in detail analysis that how different designs of that geometry are going to affect the heat transfer in case of heat exchangers. So I'm just going to, this is one type of depiction or one type of layouts, right? So in many tube-in-tube heat exchangers or shell-and-tube heat exchangers, so the roughness within the tube and outside the tube plays a vital role in case of those type of heat exchanging devices, right? So we can think of having same roughness, type of roughness around, or different roughnesses around. So I've just given you some of the figures which I had from the book by Webb, Professor R.L. Webb, right? So so you see that the different tubes are given with the different roughnesses. Right, so first is the helical rib roughened, or the inner for the inner on the inner side, and there are some different types of roughness element at the outer side. Right, so we have integral fins on the outer side. Right, so then we have internal fins on the inner surface and coated surface at the outer, depending upon the application. Right, so likewise, we can have different types of roughnesses not only in the inside but on the outside of that tube. So when it all it will be decided by the type of application that we are going to handle. This is going to give you the glimpse of that, whatever I have written earlier, that we can provide different reference elements in the form of microfins, right? And again, in microfins, people used different types of sections of the micro. So this is one type of, we can say, trapezoidal section, triangular section, square section, many type of sections that people have devised for checking how much enhancement in heat transfer is there, right? So similarly, in the case of channels, so different types of channels people have tried, like we have rectangular channels, triangular channels, and trapezoidal channels. We can test them and we can recommend them for a particular application, because these type of, because if you talk about the application like the cooling of the electronic chip, so because of the enhancement, or the, we can say, advancement in the processor speeds, right? So the heat evolution is increasing day by day, because at the same time we are trying to miniaturize. This is what all heat transfer people are aware of. So we have to devise very impeccable solutions for chip cooling. So micro channels are nowadays are more fascinating area, which is very people are trying to use more commonly in case of chip cooling. There are some other in passive, because we are continuing with our passive techniques. So in passive techniques, if you just go away from the surface, we can put some additives in the liquids to enhance the heat transfer. So this is the area in which a lot of work is going on. So but there are some issues related to that also. So additives for liquids, we include some solid particle titanium oxides of different sizes, right? So they ultimately enhance the heat transfer from the surface to the fluid, or fluid to the surface, right? So we can insert some gas bubbles, some aeration in the flow, that which can create some disturbance in the flow, and ultimately we can have some enhanced heat transfer possible, right? So we can have similar additives can be recommended for gases, right? So we can have solid particle or droplets which can create some disturbances in the flow of gases, and ultimately they lead to enhancement in the heat transfer, right? So passive techniques no doubt are extensively used in many of the applications, right? So nowadays, people are trying to use many of the applications heat transfer enhancements of the plane surfaces are now very rarely used, and people are trying to put some type of enhancement procedure or some type of enhancement deploy some type of enhancement on the surface, right? So I will talk about some other type of techniques which we use because they are expensive and they are more cumbersome also, right? So to the extent possible, we should go for passive techniques, but active techniques, no doubt they have their added advantage. They can lead to some better heat transfer from the surface to the fluid or fluid to the surface. So why we are concerned, I'm coming back to the basics, why we are concerning about the heat transfer enhancement. I just said that if we are able to enhance the heat transfer, then the performance of that device will increase. Or we can think of reducing the size of that device for a given heat load, for a given heat duty, right? So it means it is ultimately going to affect our design. For a given design, it's going to affect the performance. So that's why heat transfer enhancement is a well-discussed topic. And so many processes, as I said in the beginning, that the process industry are now doing a lot of work or a lot of design modifications so that they can provide some enhancement in their devices, right? So active techniques involves mechanical aids. So these are simplest devices. Involves stirring the fluid by mechanical means or rotating the surface. Mechanical surface scrapers, widely used in viscous fluids in the chemical and process industry, right? So it means we are continuously feeding the fluid by creating disturbance in the fluid, right? So that is the active technique for enhancing the heat transfer. Surface vibration, right? So it's another technique to add either low or high frequency has been used primarily to improve the single phase heat transfer. A piezoelectric device may be used to vibrate the surface and with small droplets. So like that, we can create some disturbance in the flow that surface and surface disturbance can create some disturbance in the fluid, and ultimately heat transfer enhancement can be sensed, right? Fluid vibrations. So that's a more effective way because surface vibrations are more intricate way of enhancing the heat transfer. It's a more practical type of vibration enhancement because of the mass of the most of the heat exchangers. Because if you give vibration to the heat exchangers, many times it may lead to some undesired effects. The vibration range from pulsation of 1 hertz. So like we can do ultrasound vibrations. We can provide vibration and we can have some heat transfer enhancement. So there are some another techniques we used for many type of different fluids like electrostatic field. We can apply are applied in many different ways to dielectric fluids. So generally speaking, so we can create some with the help of electric field. We can just give some body force to the fluid, which can just give additional movement to the fluid, and additional disturbance can be sensed, right? So that can enhance the heat transfer to the fluid, right? Injection is utilized by supplying gas into the porous heat transfer surface. So we can provide some gas from the surface to the liquid side, and we can create some disturbances in the flow continues or a surface feeding. Respiration can lead to some more heat transfer from the surface to the fluid, right? Jet impingement is another area where we can enhance we can think of creating small jets, and we can allow them to impinge over the surface, and we can just play with the boundary layer, and we can have enhanced heat transfer from the surface, right? This is another active way of enhancing the heat transfer from the surface, right? Spray cooling, spray droplet impingement is another, we can say, active techniques which we can think of for enhancing the heat transfer in case of devices. Right? Now, so we have now discussed many devices, many techniques. I've listed few, right? But there are many. There are many techniques which you can devise your own technique. You can innovate your own technique, right? So whether that techniques whether that particular alteration in the design is going to make some sense or not. That is an important question that is to be answered. It means performance evaluation is the most important aspect when we innovate with some design modifications of the heat exchanger. So it means we have to set some criteria to decide whether certain changes are going to give me some benefit or not, right? So quantitative method is required to evaluate the performance improvement provided by given enhancement, right? So it means we should be able to give that whether we could able to develop twice of the heat transfer enhancement or 3 times of the heat transfer enhancement as compared to the smooth surface or a plane surface. So that we need to judge, or we can so identify before recommending certain enhancement procedure or enhancement technique for a certain application. So performance enhancement criteria analysis for enhancement of two-phase flow. So that's important because I'm will be dealing more with single-phase flow. Of two-phase flow, boiling or condensation should be handled differently from that of the single-phase flow. This is because the pressure drop of the two-phase fluid also reduces the local saturation temperature. So this will change or affect the heating potential or heat transfer potential, right, of that particular device. So the basic performance characteristics of the enhanced surface for a single-phase heat transfer is defined by Colburn J factor. I hope many of the participants are aware of this Colburn or Pondler analogy, Reynolds analogy, right? So these there's a relation between the friction and the heat transfer, right? So there's a relation between heat transfer and momentum, right? So momentum transfer, right? So those type of things are well discussed in the literature. So we can say with the help of Colburn J factor, so which is product of Stanton number into Prandtl number raised to power 2/3. This is a well-established relationship, which I'm not going to discuss here in detail because I presume that most of the participants are from heat transfer side, and they can they are from having thermal background. Because so even if you are not from thermal background, these are not the very we can say specialized nomenclatures which you can take it from any of the heat transfer book, and you can understand these type of terminology. So Colburn J factor can be the basic performance criteria, right? So we can say the basic performance characteristics of the enhanced surface for a single phase heat transfer is defined by the Colburn J factor and F versus Reynolds number curves. Right? So these are the curves that we generally draw from Colebrook equation, which is later drawn by Moody's in the form of Moody's diagram, right? So there we can have the friction factor we can say evaluation from there, right? So if one simply calculate the enhancement ratio J upon Js, that's the only heat transfer gain, that's at equal velocities, an unfair comparison may result because the enhancement surface would be allowed to operate at high pressure drop. So this is what is the key point lies, right? Whenever we propose certain enhancement, so we are very happy that by giving some enhancement, because some alteration to the design of that particular device, heat transfer has increased 4 times or 5 times. But what about the input? What about the push that we require to force the flow over that roughness elements? The pressure drop. So pressure penalty that will go against you, right? So you have to be, on the one side we are getting benefit, on the another side we are also getting penalized in the form of pressure drop. So if there is a more pressure drop across that particular device, then we have to increase the size of the pump. So that will again add to the cost, right? So that will not be a we can say advisable we can say recommendation, right? So that is why simply looking at the ratio of the enhancement factor seen in the form of say Colburn J factor, right? So is a misleading idea about checking whether certain alteration is going to give me the enhancement in heat transfer. Simply I'm saying, it's very simple words, I'm saying that simply noticing that heat transfer has increased is not the sole point for recommending certain enhancement procedure for a certain application. We have to look into the pressure drop also, because if the pressure drop is more, then the gain, overall gain will be lesser. Thus, the pressure drop constraint is a very important consideration for calculating performance benefits of an enhanced surface in a single phase process. So I would like to discuss about what criteria we should follow for comparing the performance of a roughened surface and a smooth surface, right? So one thing is that we have to compare their pressure drops also, and we have to compare their heat transfer aspects also, and we have to develop some respective conclusion that whether we are going to get some overall gain or not, right? So that we'll see in forthcoming slides. Right? So for deciding the criteria for is going to give me the benefit or not. So different criteria are listed in the literature. I'm going to share with you because whatever I'm discussing with you is these are well discussed in the literature, and why I'm discussing in the form of presentation here, because these things should not be overlooked. So all of us should be very much aware of that. These are the things which we should look into before recommending certain enhancement procedure or enhancement technique for certain application. So this is a fixed geometry criteria, FG criteria. In this, we compare the performance for a given heat exchanger to the roughened heat exchanger or an enhanced heat exchanger. The cross-sectional area and the tube length are held constant in this criteria, right? So in the first category of this criteria, the FG1 we call it. So we call it as a fixed geometry. Means we are simply right. So same everything. Suppose I'm talking about a solar array. I'm not going to change the dimensions. Everything is same, right? I'm simply retrofitting or inducing the elements, and I'm noticing the performance, and I'm doing the comparison on the basis of that. The FG1 criteria may be thought of as a retrofit situation in which there is a one-to-one replacement of smooth surface with enhanced surface, right, of the same basic geometry. FG2 criteria have the same objective, means geometry is same as that of FG1, but requires the enhanced surface design to operate at the same pumping power as reference smooth surface. So pumping power we are keeping same, and we are looking at the heat transfer enhancement then. So what we have to do is we have to play with the flow rate there. So we are playing with the flow rate and we are keeping the pumping power same, and we are seeing that what is the enhancement in the heat transfer for the same geometry with roughened and smooth surface. FG3 criteria. So this is fixed geometry criteria. Seeks reduced pumping power for a fixed heat duty. So there we keep heat duty fixed, and we are looking at the gain, how much pumping power has been reduced, right? So these are the criteria of comparison whether we are going to get some overall enhancement or gain in the case of if we are proposing certain enhancement technique for certain applications. There is another criteria, we call it as FN criteria. So these criteria maintains fixed cross-sectional area and allows the length of the heat exchangers to be variable, right? So these criteria seek reduced surface area or reduced pumping power for a constant heat duty, right? So we are trying to, we can say, change the design of the heat exchanger, right, for constant duty. So we are trying to miniaturize the size of the heat exchanger, right? So then we have variable geometry, right? So in many cases, heat exchangers is sized for a required thermal duty with a specific flow rate. So in this situation, the FG and FN criteria are not applicable, right? So we have, because things are fixed, because the tube side velocity must be reduced to accommodate the higher friction characteristics of the enhanced surface, it is necessary to increase the flow area to maintain constant flow rate. So this is accomplished by using greater number of parallel flow circuits. So this is again, we can say, by modifying the design of geometry of the, we can say, the heat exchanger, and looking at whether we are going to get the gain by devising some roughness in that particular application. So next is a few mathematics. So because this, I thought I should share with you this mathematics also. So we are very much familiar with the first equation. So this I'm writing on the basis of Colburn equation, right? So Colburn J factor, right? So this, you know, and this is Stanton number into Prandtl number raised to power 2 by 3 is J factor, Colburn J factor, right? So I'm just rearranging. So I'm writing H is equal to, I hope those who are aware of this mathematics, even if you are not aware, so it's very simple that you can go to the boundary layer analogy in any of the heat transfer books and you can make it. So why I have added this mathematics, I would like to just show you that the criteria that we were very frequently, you need to follow all these, right? So H from the equation, that is J is equal to Prandtl number is what 2 by 3 and Stanton number. We can write H is equal to Cp Prandtl number is power minus 2 by 3 J into G, right? So G is basically is the mass flux. Right? Basically, it's rho into velocity. Right? So it's a mass flow rate per unit area. Right? So we can write it for the enhanced surface and the smooth surface, and we take the ratio, and the ratio will come out to be like this. And we can write pumping power from Darcy-Weisbach equation, and because Darcy-Weisbach equation can be seen as F LV square upon 2GD, right? So, but if you modify it and write in terms of fluxes and cross-sectional area and surface area, it will come out to be like this. With some effort, you can just arrive at this pumping power equation also, right? And you can write for smooth and for enhanced surface, S10 for smooth surface, and take the ratio, and this will come out to be like this. So if you eliminate from the HA upon HSAS and P upon PS, these two equations, right? Eliminate the G terms, that will come out to be like this. So it will be HA upon HAS. So these two ratio, this ratio is equal to this, right? So we can say the top one, we have seen that is the enhancement ratio. This is what we said in the beginning, that if this is more, this is greater than 1, we are surely that some benefit out of some benefit we are going to get out of whatever alteration we are proposing for that particular application, right? We can say on the left hand side variables, one of the reference side variables can be treated as objective functions, right? So others we can, if we take one, then we will have the enhancement can be seen like this for a given pumping power, right? So how much heat transfer enhancement, following the criteria that we just discussed, all right? So we are again writing the same expression J, which is Colburn J factor, Stanton number under this 2 by 3. Stanton number I'm writing like this. So if you are clubbing the, if you are keeping the Reynolds number same and Prandtl number same and comparing the performance of the reference surface with that of Prandtl number same, means we are working with the same fluid, because Prandtl number is the depiction of the properties of the fluid, right? Reynolds number same means we are working with same flow velocities, right? So then we can, by making use of the top and the top equation, we can ultimately conclude that there is a one factor that we can define, which take into consideration all aspects of the pumping power as well as that of the heat transfer enhancement, is termed as performance enhancement factor or performance enhancement coefficient, or in general, we need to compare this coefficient, which we call it as a thermohydraulic performance parameter. So that is the parameter we are going to discuss in our further comparison with when I'm going to go for the case study, right? So this is something about the basics of the heat transfer enhancement. So now coming to the case study that I planned with you. The case study is of solar aerator, very simple device, right? So it is used for many of the applications. As I said, that I'm going to give in one of my slides that where we can make use of this simplest device for, and this device, the major drawback lying with this device is its performance or its efficiency or its output is very less had alterations are not made in this solar aerator. It means the heat extraction from the absorber. Because if you see the solar air heaters, everyone might have seen the solar air heater. It is a very simple device. There is a glazing, is a top glass cover, right? And there is a bottom absorber plate, and there is a duct below that. So cold air will come and hot air, after taking the heat from the surface, the absorber plate, back of the absorber plate, and it will become, it will get energized. Temperature will increase, and hot air will come out from the heat, solar air heater section, and we can make use of that for certain applications, right? So this is the basics, right? So I'm just borrowing from the Bulgaria, right? So in 2013. So this is what is, because this is a very generic depiction of what is happening in solar heaters. That's so radiations are falling. So there's a direct beam radiations, and there are some diffuse radiations combined. We call it a solar radiation, which are falling on the glass surface. And glass, has special characteristics that it allows the shorter wavelength radiations to pass through this, and those radiations which are coming from the sun are in general of shorter wavelength, right? So they can easily pass through the glass surface, and they can impinge glass cover. They can impinge on or they can strike on the absorber plate, right? So where it is a blackened surface more often, because we want to increase its absorptivity, right? So that most of the energy should get absorbed. Whatever energy is absorbed is conducted to the bottom side of the absorber. Pardon? Professor Srinivas, is it fine? Professor Srinivas? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
I'm
Yes,
audible.
sir, you're audible.
Okay, sir. Okay. Fine. So,
yes, sir, audible.
I'm audible. It's fine. So, so this is what is the structure of this is what is a cut section structure, which any person who is having sense of heat transfer can easily make out that what could have been happening over there, right? So there's air coming through the duct at temperature Ti and going out at temperature T0, right? So this is the basics. I'm taking one case study, right? So I'm saying this is a very simple device, but very useful device, right? So agriculturists, you might have witnessed one of the presentation from some professor from agriculture background. Also, they might be using a lot of hot air for their many of the applications, for chili drying, for grain drying, for room heating, for many applications, right? So vegetable drying. So they are using many applications hot air. So for preserving those for increasing their shelf life, right? So they're using and many of the devices, they use this hot air, right? So it means for them this solar air heater can be a very valuable device. For us, maybe not. We are not daily using this as frequently. We are using gas stove, right? So gas stove may be more important for our type of applications. But if you talk about the farmers, they cannot afford to go for some electric heating because it consumes energy and there's expenses involved. They want to have some simplest devices available with them so that they can make use of those devices for their type of applications. And their type of applications is the drying of grains, drying of vegetables, drying of many of their articles, so that they can be preserved for a longer time, right? So as I said that, although this device is very simple and can be taken as a benchmark application, but this has a very useful domain also where it can be put into use, right? Benefits: it's very inexpensive, like both beam and diffuse components of the radiation that you have seen in the photograph, last photo, don't require continuous tracking of the sun, right? So it's a flat surface, put it in one direction facing south, right? So 45-degree angle, and so all the times radiations are, most of the times we can allow the radiation to fall on that surface and we can make use of those radiations. But the major drawback, as I said in the beginning, the major drawback of with these devices that they are very, very inefficient, right? So because the convective heat transfer coefficient, because air is to be heated, because that is why it's called solar air heater. Air is to be heated, and that heat is to be imparted conveniently from the absorber plate to the. If absorber plate is unable to pass on the heat to the air, then it can happen that the temperature of the absorber plate may rise, and rise temperature involvement in the absorber plate may lead to some more losses, and that is again unfavorable, right? So it means we have to continuously take the heat, whatever is falling, we have to take the heat out from the absorber plate. But fluid dynamics is very, very tricky over there. That there is when you talk about in case of the applications, you talk about solar radiator. Generally, the Reynolds number is of the order of 20,000, say from 10,000 to 20,000 Reynolds number, right? So depending upon whatever duct size you are using, right? So for those type application, the flow is turbulent and the viscous sublayer will be formed, and that I said is impeding the heat transfer, and that is to be seen more carefully, right? This is some basics, right? So this is how the flow over the flat plate, and the same situation will be prevailing over that flat absorber plate, that there is a flow coming at the entrance to the duct, and because of some instabilities happening when it moves along the length of the duct, right? So some perturbations ultimately resulting in some turbulence creation, right? So, but the layer which is very close to the surface is unaware of what is happening at the core zone, right? So core zone turbulence is established, but the very close to the surface, which I'm calling is laminar sublayer, right? So is unaware of, because this is strongly attached to the surface with strong adhesive forces between the fluid particles and the surface, right? So fluid is still well behaved, laminar, right? So that laminar flow is not very good from the point of view. That is why my application demands that this laminar flow should be disturbed. So this, once we are trying to disturb this laminar flow, it means we have to put something over there to disturb that laminar flow. So that is the concept of providing artificial elements in very close to the surface of smaller sizes, so that we can trip this laminar sublayer and ultimately enhance the heat transfer rate. So this is what is the philosophy, or this is what is the objective for which we are trying to establish the information. So it's very close to the surface. Many layers are packed together, and the heat transfer is by diffusion, right? Or diffusion heat transfer means conduction is there, right? So you must be knowing that this, when we are talking about the film coefficient, basically we are representing this film coefficient is the conductance of this particular film which is formed of this. So this film should be very, very thin, so that it offers minimum resistance. So now, from the earlier discussion, we came to know that we have to trip that laminar sublayer, so that enhancement of it. So for that, we put some roughness elements, and what those roughness elements are doing, those roughness elements are basically deflecting the flow, and again allow the flow to strike the surface. We call it as a reattachment, right? Deflection and reattachment. When flow reattaches, it reattaches with a force. When it reattaches, it creates a very, very thin boundary layer over there, and that ultimately enhances the heat transfer, right? So thinning of the boundary layer because of reattachment, and reattachment could happen, that possibility of reattachment is there because of the presence of the element. So it means that the element presence is giving me some reattachment, we can say formation of reattachment zones in over the surface, where we can, those reattachments are basically compressing that viscous sublayer, or we can say disturbing that viscous sublayer, or creating that more heat transfer possible in those regions. So in case of these roughness elements, which are how they are enhancing the heat transfer, major chunk of heat transfer enhancement is allocated to the reattachments which are formulated. More number of reattachments, more effective reattachments means more heat transfer can be expected, right? In addition to that, there can be some secondary flows developed depending upon the shape of these elements. These elements are very small, right? So if you see the height of these elements with respect to hydraulic diameter, it is say very less, 4% of the hydraulic diameter, 1 to 4% of the element, very small elements. All right. If you talk about in absolute sense, they are how much they are. They can be 1, 2, 3 mm diameter wires, very small. All right. So these elements are not like bigger elements like we project over the surface, because if we project bigger elements over the surface, then what to do with the pressure penalty that is going always against me, right? So now these elements which are provided, if they are placed slanting, they create some secondary flows, secondary vortices, right? So for V up and V down type elements, or we call these elements as ribs. Ribs, like we have ribs in our body, like these are just can be seen as ribs over the surface, right? So that's why I'm the terminology using rib, right? So I'm using it. It's a generic terminology which is well accepted in literature, right? So vortices are generated along the span-wise. Span-wise means along the length of the fin, along the length of the rib, right? So if we have V-shaped, we can have the generation of vortices from the both sides, all right? So we can expect some better transport of energy from, because these ribs are placed over the surface. So actually the rib roughness concept, what we could able to conceive through our studies, that basically they came from the studies carried out in the domain of gas turbine blade cooling, right? So, and industrial heat exchanger applications. So we applied those things to the solar aerator, and we could able to see that there's a lot of gain we could able to get by deploying those type of rib roughness elements. So these are some of the elements which are being used in case of gas turbine cooling. I think you all are aware that gas turbine cooling is very important section. So gas turbine, in gas turbines, the performance of the gas turbine engine or gas turbine device, it depends upon TIT, that is turbine inlet temperature, right? Higher the temperature, higher will be the performance, higher will be the efficiency of that gas turbine. But we cannot go beyond a certain very high temperature, because if the temperature go beyond say 2100 Kelvin or even more, then because those gases are going to enter into the turbine runner, rotor, or turbine blades, which are rotating at very high velocity, very high RPM, right? So they are subjected to centrifugal stresses, and stresses, temperature is high, and that can ultimately lead to creep failure, deformation of the blades. It's not accepted in case of. Whatever heat is imparted to the blade, same is to be taken up. Prevailing, so that the temperature should be below the working temperature of the gas turbine blades, right? So gas turbine industry hugely use roughness elements, these type of roughness elements, right? So there is a group worldwide who are working actively. So because the motivation of these roughness elements, which we are using in case of the solar air heater applications, is basically derived from the roughness element being used in case of the turbine blade cooling. But many times turbine blade cooling, the Reynolds numbers are very high. When you talk about turbine blade Reynolds numbers, these are in lakhs, 1 lakh, 1,50,000. That's there. Solar aerator, as I said, these are generally operated at low flow velocities or low Reynolds numbers, right? So these are some of the other elements which heat exchanger people extensively use, and the people in the domain of solar aerator, they have also tried and they got the benefit, right? So as I said that, right, my first statement in the beginning that we can employ, we can deploy, we can recommend any type of roughness element, for any of the applications. But before recommending it, we need to test it. Once testing pass through means when the testing has given us that this is giving any useful gain, then overall we can recommend that particular roughness or particular enhancement for a particular application. Right? So I've just shown that these are there. So I have not read out, but just giving you a glimpse of this. Right. So in our study, we are more focusing on the ribs, right? So then we study different types of ribs, and people have used different types of ribs in over the absorber plate, right? So these ribs are transverse inclined ribs, right? V-shaped ribs, curved ribs, right? Arc-shaped ribs or multiple V-ribs, right? Multiple V-ribs with gap, right? So we can have staggered ribs, right? So we can have inclined rib with gap. We can have V-rib with gap or multiple gaps, right? So these are multiple. So these are some of the alterations which people have tried, and every time whatever alteration was given, and is basically is the improvement over the previous one. That is how the motivation of doing the work in the further direction came into focus, right? So we could able to see from all these, as I said, that this is the work of one of my PhD students. You must be seeing that the sequence is as like I'm presenting the thesis for that student, right? So definitely, because I'm taking the case study of the results of one of my students. So what we could conclude from the different roughness elements used in solar air heaters, that the presence of the rib patterns considerably will increase the rate of heat transfer from the heated surface due to repeated tripping of the laminar sublayer. This is what I said. Inclined ribs perform better than the transverse ribs. V-ribs, because of creation of secondary flow cells, they perform better than inclined ribs. Double that of double, because in inclined ribs, again, there is a generation of rotating vortices. Broken ribs, so they are basically giving you lesser pressure penalty because friction factor will reduce, but we can again get satisfactory tripping of the bond layer. Multiple V-rib with gap. It means now gap is coming into picture. Why we are coming gap? Because we are concerned with the pressure penalty also, right? So heat transfer as well as pressure penalty both, right? So that we are going to get the overall gain. So concluding from all these discussions, and we had seen that if we just go by V-down rib with staggered ribs, I will show you what staggered rib is, then we can expect some enhancement in transfer. When I say can expect, it means we need to test it, and that will become an investigation. So these are the sequence by which we could able to converge to multiple gap V-down rib combined with staggered ribs, right? So this is what it looks like. That V is a V-down rib. V-down rib, I'm choosing V-down. V-down means the apex is in the direction of, is down the direction of the flow, right? It can be reverse also. We call it as V-up rib, right? So there can be gap, there can be gap with staggered piece, there can be multiple gaps, and we propose that we can have number of gaps and number of staggered pieces. Staggered pieces are the small ribs which are placed in between. So I'm talking about these type of points, right? I'm talking about these type of staggered ribs, right? So staggered ribs are basically because when it comes to placing the staggered ribs, then again for the investigators, it is to investigate it thoroughly, right? So then we decided that let us investigate it thoroughly. So I'm using here in my discussion different parameters for the ribs. So E represents the height of the rib, right? Height of the rib. It's a round rib. Round rib means it's a wire. It's a wire like aluminum wire, right? So it is wire, and there's a pitch distance between two ribs adjacent to pitch, right? Distance between the staggered rib and actual distance between staggered rib and the main rib. I'm calling main rib and staggered rib, right? And this is a gap G, and alpha is the angle, right? So angled rib, you will see that angled ribs are basically creating additional secondary vortices, right? So which can just raise the heat from the surface, and transport of energy from the surface to the rest of the fluid will become faster. Right? So this is what is the work I'm taking help of, right? So this is one of my students' work, right? So I'm taking the help of this work, right? So these are some of the investigations, right? So whenever this is what is purely scientific investigation, converging at the fixation of parameters, we decided that this is what is the rib shape or rib elements we need to have. Where to place, what should be the size, what should be the gap of the size, what angle, what should be the diameter. If diameter is fixed, right? So what should be the other parameters associated with the rib, right? So all those parameters are to be fixed or optimized before recommending it for a certain application, right? So these are some of the parameters which we tested, right? So range of parameters. So these range of parameters we took help from the past applications, that in the past people could able to get the optimum value of the pitch, mean pitch between two main ribs, right? In the range of say 10. So we accordingly decided the range, so we can have some more we can say testing from the similar studies. We could able to identify the range of the parameters to be tested. So there were many objectives associated with this study, but I'm going to discuss few of them. So we did experimental study, right? So I will give you some layout that how this experimental study was conducted. With rib roughened multi-gap bead-down rib combined with staggered ribs, heat transfer and fluid flow analysis of the heat transfer through the solar air heater duct roughened with multi-gap bead-down rib combined with staggered ribs. So we did heat transfer analysis, but we did so many other things. But as I said, it is a very you can say procedural way of investigating any roughness. It's a procedural way, right? So it's not there with this rib. You can have talk about any enhancement, we can say element. You may talk about any technique which you are using. So we discussed in the beginning many techniques, right? You can select any of those techniques. You have to optimize the parameters related to. If suppose you are using twister tapes, then the twister tape, the size of the width of this twister tape, number of twists, right? So all those things are to be predefined before implementing those type of alterations for a particular application, right? So again, we all are aware that whatever the design of the setup is, that should be as per standards. So there are some heat exchanger or solar air heater standards available in ASHRAE standards, right? So we followed that, and ultimately we designed our setup, right? So this is setup which is available now in dismantled form in our lab, but earlier students used to make use of that setup for investigating different type of simulations, experimental simulations of solar air heaters, right? So this was the solar air heater facility that was there in the setup when it was in working condition, right? So any setup needs to be validated, because setup, whether we are going to, of course, get the correct information, that for that we did some comparison of the smooth plate, because roughened plate what we have used is to be tested first time, and it is always more correct to go for the validation of the experimental setup from the experimental data, of the actual setup from the data which is available, standardized data available from the some source, right? So we compared with Dieter's-Bolter equation, right? So for the duct flow, and we could able to get a good matching of our experimental observations with that of the Dieter's-Bolter equation, right? So we could see that our experimental, whenever some alterations will be there, is going to give us some correct information. All right. So again, for friction vector, we could able to see that the deviation information is in the zone. When heat transfer experiments, 4% error is many things are, even if those correlations were made, how much error was there. So we can because that's why these errors of the range of, it should be like 40%, 30%, 20%. Yeah, those are unacceptable, right? If it is 4-5% error, so it not be seen as a huge error because we are comparing something which is already driven with the help of experiments, and there is some error associated with that, error associated with this, and it comes in the range of 4%, then it should be acceptable information. So finally, this is the levels we are planning to test, that the pitch, placing of the ribs, height of the ribs. So we have used 1 millimeter diameter, 2 millimeter diameter, 3 millimeter diameter wires. Accordingly, their height of the diameter in non-dimensional form will be like this. So we could able to use 4 diameters of the wire, and we could able to place those wires over the surface. I'm calling them as ribs, right? At different angles, different gaps were created, right? Number of gaps, different gaps, right? So a gap width, different gap widths were created, right? And staggered rib size, staggered rib spacing, and Reynolds number. So it is 4,000, 12,000. It is well within the testing range of the solar air heaters, right? So these are the type of one set of the experiments that we have conducted for value of alpha, right? Similarly, we did for other plates, right? So this is what you can see, that the plate, when it is roughened, very tedious. The student, we always feel that he might have done a lot of work in this, placing these ribs minutely. We can say hundreds of ribs on the ribs, and he fabricated around such, suppose 40 plates, I think 42 plates. Huge work that he did. So very laborious, and ultimately he could able to generate some useful data. But I always see there should be some simpler way of imposing or putting roughness element over the surface. But for systematic or scientific and study, we need to go for such a detailed experimentation, right? This is one type of, you can say, smaller pitch, smaller p-value on the left side, bigger p-value on the right-hand side. Smaller. This is the clustering of the ribs. This is a rarefication of the ribs, right? So two gaps, two staggered ribs. Difference in layout is there, right? So like that, you can see that here also, right? So if you have different see sizes of the wire, right? So it is 0.26 smaller and bigger wire, right? So likewise, this is smaller angle and bigger angle, right? So this is how look like, right? So smaller angle means we need to use some longer length of the wires. So like this, we can have these wires. So that's like 42 plates, as I said, that he has made. So he has followed certain procedures. So steady state measurements were taken. Heat flux, only solar heat flux, you know that on a is 100 watt per scale. But for simulation, we used it at 1000 watt per meter square, right? So Reynolds number, we took 12,000, which is well in the application of once the flow is, heater was kept on and steady state was, and measurements were taken at steady state. So he put many thermocouples at the top of that absorber plate, and he took the mean temperature, which he defined as area weighted means, which he defined as. So then we did some mathematical analysis. We calculated the mass rate of the air which is flowing from the pressure drop, or we measured it with the osmometer, right? So beta is the diameter ratio of that orifice and that of the pipe. CD is the coefficient of discharge. And so this is how we can make out the utilization of energy, right? So then we can calculate the heat transfer coefficient, Nusselt number, and the friction factor from the pressure drop, right? So all these calculations we can. It is a very simple calculation that we can make for the value of Nusselt number and friction factor, because friction factor basically is giving me the depiction of how much pressure drop is happening. The Nusselt number is giving me the value how much enhancement and heat transfer is happening, right? So it means I should have more Nusselt number, I should have less friction factor. Only then I can say that this particular combination of the wires, layout of the wires, is going to give me the best of the information, right? So 15 minutes, like, so I will hurriedly show you these slides. So this is how we perceived that this is what is speculated information of the main rib and the staggered rib. So we are expecting that the flow over the rib, it will get deflected and it will reattach over the surface, and there's a creation of some reattachment, right? And when the flow is coming through the gap, it will come over the staggered rib, and it will create two circulation before and after the staggered rib, and there are some secondary span-wise flow movements, vortices created at the vertex of that rib, right? So these are the flow speculation that we have. So I will hurriedly go through this because I have to finish by 1 o'clock. So this slide shows that as the Nusselt number, as the Reynolds number increases, right? So we are increasing the flow rate by increasing the by opening the gate valve for our blower, right? So we were handling the flow of the air into the duct by controlling the gate valve, right? So Nusselt number, so it increases with the increase in Reynolds number. It's very obvious, right? But the thing that is to be noticed that as there are roughness element provided, and bottommost is for the smooth surface, there is the appreciable increase in appreciable increase in this is see that this is appreciable increase in the Nusselt number, right? So Nusselt number, say it's a 20 corresponding to 10,000 Reynolds number, there is a 100, right? See that 5 times gain than that of the smooth surface. That is quite a huge gain that can be expected, right? So Nusselt number is increased. So this is because of thinning of the bond layers, right? So creation of secondary flows, right? And some additional disturbance created by the vortices. These are the things. But we did experiment and we could able to see or explain it on the basis of the information which is already available in literature. But there's always the scope of giving the exact explanation, because effect is one thing, that but what is the cause behind that effect is another important thing that we need to understand. So this is the important aspect that we could able to notice in our study, that there was in earlier studies we could able to see that there was only one peak, right? So we could able to see the 2 peaks in the Nusselt number with pitch. Means there are 2 pitches which are basically giving me the optimum, and we could recommend 12 because bigger pitch will which will allow us to go for less number of ribs and a simple design, right? So this is the major thing that we could able to notice, right? So we can say that this first peak is because of that turbulence created, right? So reattachment that is happening, more number of reattachments is possible if 6 is there. Then if it is 12, the number of reattachment points will be still lesser. Then what had made that heat transfer to be higher? So that we could able to see that this staggered rib, in case of these type of layouts, plays a very vital role at higher value of the rib roughness, higher value of the pitch, right? So we could able to, and finally we recommended. Yes, 10 minutes. Yes, I will finish. I will finish with a few slides. I will rush through and simply show the student. Pardon, sir? So these are some of the slides. So this will give us that at 60 degree angle. So we could able to see. So we could able to see at 60 degree at 60 degree. So angle. So again, with the increase in angle or with decrease in angle, the recirculation is getting affected, and so accordingly, we could able to see that at angle of 60 degree, we could get the optimum heat transfer. So similarly, the rib height. So if it's very small, it's not able to create the disturbance. If it is at some optimum value, that came out to be 0.44 in our case. But if it comes out still bigger, then the projection will come out from the laminar sublayer. So the gain in creating disturbance in the outer region is not that useful, right? So in that way, we could not able to get much benefit, and optimum value we could get able to 0.044, right? So I'm just showing you the optimum value that we could able to get. So these are because of the time constraint, I'm just rushing through my slides. So we could able to see that if the gap is same as that of the height of the rib, then gap width, then it will give us the optimum heat transfer. So if the number of gaps are 2, not very large number of gaps, so heat transfer was maximum. So this is the tentative flow structure that we could able to see. So enhancement, you can see that the blocks, dark blocks, right? So in our case, it was quite high as compared to the other studies. That it means Nusselt number was expected, but Nusselt number is not the only. It can be misleading criteria. That's why we decided to go for the friction factor calculation. So we had seen that how Reynolds number changes with friction factor, how friction factor changes with Reynolds number. So we could able to see for different pitch, right, and for different angles, right. So for alpha, f should be minimum, right. So what is required is f should be minimum. So that particular we can say, but one is minimum, but it's not only. It's not like if is friction is minimum and heat transfer is also minimum. It's also not the criteria, because we have to set a different criteria, right? So this is how we can decide that the height of the rib, if it is low, is giving you reasonably low value of friction factor, right? So similarly, the gap, which is of the order of 1, giving you reasonably low value of friction factor. So similarly, number of ribs, if they are 2, then they are giving you reasonably low friction factor, right? So friction factor, we could able to see that in our study, it was quite lowest as compared to the other studies, right? So then we performance the same way I discussed, right? So I would like to show this slide. So this slide is that we could able to see, so the thermohydraulic performance quite significantly high. So it means it is compared to the smooth plate, right? So it is around say 2.4, 2.5 times the smooth plate. So it is a good gain that we can expect by providing roughness element over the surface, right? So concluding all the informations. So for all combinations of reference symmetry, Nusselt number and friction factor were quite high as compared to those obtained using smooth observer plate. This is very obvious also. Two peaks in the Nusselt number versus relative roughness pitch were obtained corresponding to the relative roughness pitch of 6 and 12. So it seems that the first maximum is due to large number of low retachment points, and the second maximum is because of the staggered rib presence, right? So rib density leads to more economical, means 12 ribs are good, and is the best design. So Nusselt number has found to be maximum at 0.044 of the rib height, right? So if rib height increases, then again the gain was less. So I found that Nusselt number increases with increase in angle, right? So up to 60 degrees, so we could able to get the optimum value of the heat transfer. So Nusselt number and friction factor were found to be strong function of gap it was there. Position of staggered ribs with respect to the upstream rib in front of the gap was considered to have a considerable effect on the friction factor. So size of the staggered rib has no appreciable, so we could not able to see much of the effect of the size of the rib. It's one of the slides that I hurriedly go through, right? So we can see in the last summary of this case study, comparison on hydral performance of the present rib roughness geometry resulted in considerable improvement in the value of the thermal performance parameter, which is the more authentic way of giving the recommendation of a certain enhancement technique for a certain application. Be discrete rib, inclined rib with cap, be down rib with cap, and broken B rib combined with staggered rib geometry respectively. Means staggered rib, B rib with cap with staggered piece is going to give us a better performance and can be recommended without any hesitation for the applications of solar air heater. But here I would like to just add here that these are very, very clumsy techniques or very, very laborious techniques, and we should think of some more, we can say, easy techniques for enhancing the heat transfer. This is the scope, and which can give you, even it is a heat transfer enhancement is 2. Then the solar means thermohydraulic performance factor is raised twice of that of the smooth surface. If it is less cumbersome in deployment of that reference, we should go for that particular technique. So with this, I'm thankful to the organizers and thankful to all the participants for listening to this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So if there is some query, I can take up.
Hello.
Yes.
Dr. Really very practical and really very useful towards this artificial roughened. Sir, I would like to know in our telecom,
Okay.
I was working with the Indian telephone industry, and in the electronics packaging, various electronic devices like diodes and power supply, we were used to make use of the extruded aluminum fin type of heat dissipators.
Right, sir.
Is that there difference between that application and this application? What's the major difference between?
It is in the beginning, actually, as I said, that there also whenever you are using extruded surface or some projections or fins over the surface, or some longitudinal projections over the surface. So basically, you are extending the surface. So
very right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is what we have seen in the earlier discussion, that there are 2 ways we can enhance the heat transfer. One is by increasing the surface area or by increasing the heat transfer coefficient.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So there, you are trying in your applications, you are trying to give more surface area, contact area to the air which is surrounding it, so that heat transfer enhances, because it is low temperature application. Low temperature we generally consider less than 100 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
So for less than 100 degrees Celsius, the predominant mode of heat transfer is convection.
Right, sir. Yes.
And convection heat transfer can be enhanced by 2 ways, either by playing with the value of film coefficient, that is heat transfer coefficient, or by increasing the value of surface area.
Very right. Yes, sir.
So there you are trying to enhance the heat transfer, because your dissipator, by projecting these projections over the surface, you are increasing the area and giving whatever heat is generated.
Very right.
And you are increasing the heat dissipation over there.
Sir,
so
one
your query was, is it similar to what we discussed here? Answer is yes. Answer is yes.
Very right. Sir, I got it. One, sir, a little more doubt.
Yeah.
Though it may differ from what we have discussing. Sir,
Okay.
We make use of dissipation of the heat by fan also, circular fans also, blow type of fans.
Yes.
In a laptop, like a laptop.
Yes.
Now, my equation is we are trying to protect the component which is getting overheated, right, sir? Only matter is about the heat dissipation. Now, that heat dissipation, does not it affect the neighboring components?
See, in electronics, you mean the movement of the fluid? movement of the fluid affects the neighboring components, or
yeah. There is, because I find the device getting too much overheated. Though fan is running continually, so is it okay, or it requires some more safety?
There is a lot of discussion on electronic packaging. Where to locate the fan, where to locate the chip, and in respect to chip, where to locate the other components. So that is a bigger topic in discuss in electronics, that is known as electronic packaging.
Okay, sir. Okay,
because,
sir. Very
so,
right.
So when we blow the air, when the hot air is going out, it should be, the flow of the air should be maintained in such a way that it should not go as a hot air to some other components.
Yeah, very right.
That comes under the purview of electronic packaging, and the people are, when they are designing the layout of different components in the motherboard or the electronic circuit, so they take care of all these things in detail.
Very beautifully explained, sir. Sir, sorry to extend one little. Sir, this AC installation, window type AC installation, because the dissipator, we try to avoid the installation in such a way it does not come on way the passes, because the heat dissipated may affect the people passing by. So that limits its use of installation. The back has to be clear, sufficient gap, so that it does not, this is the safety sort of thing. Safety.
Yes.
Sir, thank you very much. Sorry to take to the other thing.
It's very nice to talk to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sir, that blade, turbine blade, that was case study was from any organization, an industry, or
sir, actually, gas turbine blades, they study on lab scale. They just simulate the things, or they do some experiment. They construct some blade and create some passages. But whatever the final roughness or the placing of the roughness they decide, they recommend it to the manufacturers of gas turbines. So there are some companies who are basically manufacturing gas turbines, like Pratt & Whitney, Rolls-Royce, GE. So they recommend their roughness designs to the designers, because there are thermal module department, department in GE also, who looks into the thermal aspect of the turbine blades. So industry related to gas turbine is more related to the aviation industry, because they are extensively using, but stationary applications or some power generation. So there also, if in those applications people are interested in having some more inlet temperature, or allow the more temperature to get into the turbine section, then they have to think of some cooling of the gas turbine blades. So yes, there the gas turbine, maybe stationary application or aviation, they need to consider the turbine blade cooling, or otherwise they have to think of some materials which can withstand very high temperature, and which is very costly affair. People are doing in that direction also. So one way is we don't put, because providing channels in the gas turbine, it will structurally very taxing. So because it will make the turbine blade weaker, because it's a hollow channel within the turbine blade. So that can make the channel strength weaker, but the heat transfer demands that. Heat transfer says otherwise it will lead to failure. So that's why the channels are put in the turbine blades for turbine blade cooling, and it is a very general practice used in the design of gas turbines.
Is it applicable to steam turbine also, or only for gas turbines?
For other steam turbines?
Yes, steam.
Steam turbines, sir, the temperatures are comparatively operating temperature are comparatively very less. So there, such type of problems cannot be witnessed. Gas turbine, the temperatures are, if you see the turbine, gas turbine temperature, TIT temperature, that can be of the order of 2100 Kelvin, if I'm not wrong. So higher is better. So in comparison to steam, which is generally operated at superheated, even if it is superheated 500, 600, 700, right? So comparatively very less temperature, and material is not asking me to go for the turbine blade cooling.
In a thermal power plant,
Moreover, in case of gas turbine, there is a provision of cooling because we have air available from the compressor, which can be easily passed into the channels, and that can ultimately mix with the combustion fluid.
in steam turbine, hardly 600 degree maximum, 600 temperature with the.
Yes, so because low temperature application, I'm not saying low, it is comparatively in comparison to gas turbines. So they are working at lower temperatures, and cooling will not be that bigger issue as it is there in case of gas turbines.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. So thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable and detailed information on solar heater. So the participant side is there any questions still?
Sir, any project is going on through GE or any industry through collaboration with NIT Jalandhar?
Sir, right now we are not doing such project with anyone, but because there are many domains we are working parallelly, we are working in combustion side also. So as right in the beginning, Professor Tender told that we are working on furnaces and all that. So there, and parallelly we are working on the cooling side, turbine blade cooling, and even electronic component cooling is the area in which we are trying to establish the information.
Waste heat recovery, suppose WHRB, that is also waste heat recovery to heat generation. Some small plants are using. So that technology, from that technology, it will be any case study or any project is going on.
Right now, sir, we are not doing that sort of project. But no doubt we can think of utilizing this information in those domains also. Yes.
Because in so many small plants, direct reduction sponge iron plants, and whatever previous speaker Mr. Srinivasji told today morning also regarding some cement plants, some heat recovery opportunities are there.
Okay.
Okay. We did some
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fine.
Rasi Cement, we did case studies at Rasi Cement, India Cement, and Ultratech. Ultratech, they are using waste heat recovery. Ultratech, Rasi in India, I am saying. And Sagar Cements in Telangana, they are going to implement this waste heat recovery to generate the electricity from the hot gas. Whereas Ultratech, they are using the technology, organic Rankine cycle technology. In case of Rasi Cement, they are using the waste heat recovery, and the power generation system is steam flashing system, that is Japan based technology. Our team is working on this case studies. Later I will share the details.
Thank you, Professor Srinivas, and thank you, Professor Subhash Chandra, for such a highly informative and excellent lecture on heat transfer transmitting in solar collector using roughnet. So I would like to thank all the participants for this session, and I congratulate Professor Srinivas for organizing such a highly informative or needed FDP on the theme of solar energy applications in various aspects. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Stender.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Here, thank you for your patience listening. And now the next section is we schedule 2:30. After lunch, you kindly join sharply at 2:30.